Hey YouTube. Alright friends, it's time to talk about the MCU. This will not contain any spoilers for Endgame, so if you're worried, don't be. But I wanted to do a little personal ranking of the films in the MCU because I am a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I started with the MCU before I got into comics. I am planning to do a running series of about some of the comics that I'm reading, but in honor of Endgame and this sort of phase of the MCU coming to a close, I thought it would be fun to do a personal ranking, and also because I've seen some rankings that I really disagree with, so I have to tell the internet that it's wrong. Now, to be fair, this is not going to be a ranking of the best movies necessarily. It's not like how well they're made or like how good they necessarily are for anyone, but this is more like a personal favorites kind of ranking. And it is informed by some biases that I have, some characters that I really like. I like character-driven stories. I am a shipper, so there are certain relationships in the MCU that I really like seeing explored. So just, keep that in mind. Also, I have not seen two movies in the MCU. The Incredible Hulk, because it's apparently terrible and there's no point. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, because of my opinion of the first Ant-Man. Also, this order is the best I can do. But I will say that, the actual order, the more obvious thing to me was that they kind of fell into three chunks for me. So there's 18 movies I'm going to be ranking. I would say the last three are just bad. I don't like them. Everything from really only 13 through 15, so the next three I would say are kind of okay, and everything else I really like and I think are good movies. So I did my best to rank them, but really that's the fact that there are that many 12 movies that I find really solid and good says a lot about the universe. So let's get started. 18, Ultron. Why? Seriously, why? The only good thing about that movie, well, maybe there's a couple good things. The opening scene, the kind of splash page with all the Avengers fighting, that's really cool because you get to kind of see that they've been training together since you last saw them. You have examples of sort of combo moves and working together that I really like about some of the fight sequences in the MCU, but that is not enough to save this movie. I do also like the after party. Everybody says the after party scene where they're all trying to lift Thor's hammer, which has a payoff at some point that I will not spoil, but that scene is really, really great. The rest of the movie is BS. Yes, it sets up more of Tony's whole space anxiety, whatever, Thanos is coming thing, but the whole thing with Black Widow, I'm sorry, no. Just no. There's no real reason. You could have a reason for Banner and Natasha to get together if you really wanted to. Yes, they have similarities. Yes, there are things about their stories that go together, but they didn't really try. They just kind of smushed them together and said, okay, sure. The Hawkeye family thing, I'm a little more positive about it now. But it did seem very random at the time. As fun as it was to have the little gag scenes in there, the whole thing felt contrived. So that's number 18. Number 17, Ant-Man. Whatever, it's fine. I just don't like Ant-Man that much as a character, especially Paul. Sorry, Paul Rudd, but I just don't like Paul Rudd that much as an actor. And so the movie was kind of forgettable. I literally don't remember the plot. I know there was some angst and stuff about hope, and anyway, the best part of that movie was the Falcon cameo. Otherwise, forgettable. And maybe that's because I'm not really into buddy comedy type. I feel like that he's kind of this schlub character that I just don't care that much about. 16, Thor: The Dark World. I might have ranked this lower, except for the fact that there's more Darcy Lewis, and I love Darcy Lewis. And oh my god, it should be 19. I left Thor off. I left Thor off, you guys. So I'm gonna real quick slot the first Thor in here, and then, all right, I know where I'm putting it. All right, so the numbering is off, so I'm gonna adjust as we go. So actually, it's 19 movies, and actually, we're now at 17. Sorry about that. So Ultron is 19, Ant-Man is 18, and then 17, Thor the Dark World. Okay. So, again, kind of forgettable, like the plot, I don't know, Dark Elves, blah, blah, blah. But I love Darcy Lewis. So the fact that they threw in some more Darcy Lewis, the intern thing is just weird, but I have to give it a tiny, tiny bit of credit for that. Otherwise, I mean, I guess Jane slapping Loki is kind of fun, and there's that scene with the like Loki being the other Avengers, which is kind of awesome. But like, other than that, it's a couple of fun scenes in an otherwise forgettable movie. Okay, actual number 16, Iron Man 3. Oh my god, did I leave out Iron Man 2? You guys, I'm very bad at this. It's actually 20. It's an even 20. Well, that's a good number. But I left out Iron Man 2 because I'm bad at this. So, yeah, this is like the worst ranking video ever. Alright, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slot Iron Man 2 in. I'm going to put it actually directly below. So we are at the right place, despite this. Hey, nobody said I was super professional. Alright, so we got 20, 19, 18. Alright, so 17 Iron Man 2 and 16 Iron Man 3. So here's my thing about the Iron Man movies. I love Iron Man. I love Tony Stark. I know he's obnoxious, but I just love the character and the character development, and I admittedly am a Robert Downey Jr. fan. So Iron Man 2 was not much of a movie. It was more like there were some specific good scenes. Whiplash as a villain was kind of Justin Hammer is actually, like, I think a really fun villain, but Whiplash, so I like the campiness of Justin Hammer, and there's certain, like, cool moments of Tony Stark fighting, but I think overall there's not much there. And then Iron Man 3, I feel kind of similarly. I like that they do the Extremis thing, but I don't think they do it that well, and then I don't like that Extremis just kind of magically goes away at the end, and so, like, there's not, like, there's sort of rescue, but there's not really rescue, if you know the comics. Like, the way they flesh out Pepper, honestly, in both of those movies, like, I think could have been better. Now, 15, I'm going with Doctor Strange. This is a character, like, here's the thing about that movie. The comics, super fucking racist. The movie version, less so. I think, like, a lot of people talk about Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, and, like, what it meant to cast a white person as that, and those are all really good points. I think as an actress, she did great, like she always does. I mean, thank God that they made the Wong character, like, not the caricature that he is in the comics. And I do think there's good characters in there. I think, like, you have a really interesting villain. You have an interesting, like, what they're going to do with Mordo, I don't know, but that is probably going somewhere cool. They managed to do a lot of the, like, cinematography is actually pretty cool when they're, like, kind of in the, what do they call it? The other plane, like, Mirror World or whatever. And then development of the character makes sense. I mean, Doctor Strange is an asshole, and so watching a movie about an asshole is not always super fun, and I do think Doctor Strange is maybe better alongside other Avengers, but, it's not a bad movie. But Benedict Cumberbatch's American accent, you guys, I can't. Alright, 14. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I'm ranking this lower than the first Guardians. I think it's still fun, it's still got that signature, it's still good. The whole ego plot line was just, I don't know, I didn't find it as interesting as the first movie, and I think because, like, seeing those characters come together for the first time was so exciting, like, this just didn't have that for me. 13, Thor. So this is where I would put the first Thor. I really liked it at the time when it came out, and if I wasn't comparing it against other movies, I might think differently, especially Ragnarok. Like, if I hadn't seen Ragnarok, I'd probably rank Thor higher. The intro to the character was really fun, especially for somebody who hadn't read the comics, so it was my first time seeing it. I actually remember seeing when it was coming out. I didn't see it in the theaters, saw it on DVD, but the ads for that movie, I was like, what is this? I want to see this, because just the, like, imagery of this kind of, like, bumbling guy from another world with tiny Natalie Portman looking at him like he's crazy, was fun. Like, I wanted to know what this was. So I did like the humor. I know a lot of people didn't, or thought that the character was kind of boring because he was just dumb. But I think some of the humor was good. The, like, broader plot and all the daddy issue stuff, and take or leave. Like, I really empathize with Loki in that movie. But I think you've got your Darcy Lewis introduction, which I love, and I think just, like, it was, to me, it was fun having the humor of that movie, although obviously not the best of the Thors, which we'll get to. 12, going with the first Avenger. So this is where it starts getting harder. So I think I said before where I would call, like, the good movie line. I would say the good movie line is now at Thor, so at the top 13. And the first Avenger is a really good character story. Like, I love the story of Steve and Bucky. I love the way they do it. I love the introduction of Peggy Carter. It is just classic. And, like, the way they frame Steve Rogers in boot camp really sets you up for who that character is and what's important to him and why we care about him. And I think they did a fantastic job of that. And, like, the plotty stuff and the Red Skull and Zola and all that is, like, I mean, it was decently executed. Like, I don't know that I had as much interest in that, though, as I did in sort of just, like, Steve's story and how he, and in some ways, like, I think the Peggy thing feels kind of fast, but it also feels fast in the right way for somebody who's, like, never really had, presumably, that kind of interest in, like, that level of interest in someone. It does tend to move very fast, and it can be kind of like that. And they're at war, and, you know, so, like, you know, I love the end. I love the stinger when he wakes up in the future, so I would definitely put that in the good chunk. 11, I'm going to say Spider-Man Homecoming. So I've never been a big Spidey fan. I know most people are. And I had seen, I think, one of the Tobey Maguire movies and kind of, like, shrug. I didn't rank this as highly because I don't care about Spidey as much. But I have to say Tom Holland is amazing in this. I love him as Peter Parker. I think it's perfect, and it's a movie that actually made me care about Peter Parker, which is a feat. The actual, like, villain arc was kind of, like, was fine, but wasn't a real standout to me. But I think just, like, the development of this character, his relationship with Ned, and his relationship with Tony, and the way they set up that kind of father figure thing was, like, very believable, so that as it goes forward into the into Infinity War and Endgame, like, that relationship makes a lot of sense and feels like well fleshed out. So I like that. I'm gonna put at 10 the first Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, I'm not as into these characters as I am some of the others, which is why I didn't rank it higher, but it is an amazing movie. The music, of course, is fantastic. You know, I don't like Star-Lord that much as a character, but I think, like, Chris Pratt does him perfectly. And the whole thing is just fun. It's just super fun. And Groot is one of my favorite characters in Marvel, hands down. So, alright, so now we're at 9. So this is where I'm putting Infinity War. I have very mixed feelings about Infinity War. So, I remember at the end seeing in theaters, I was kind of like, oh god, eye roll. Like, they have a time stone. Like, this is not, you know, this whole, like, half the world die. I was kind of, like, okay, I don't know how I feel about that ending. And it kind of, like, not totally soured, but slightly soured the rest of the movie for me. However, I do really like the relationships that are expanded upon in this. Like, I love the Tony and Peter thing. I love that, like, we finally got Tony and Doctor Strange going head to head with their egos, as well as Tony and Star-Lord going head to head with their egos. Those were super fun. There's a lot of good comedy in this. Quill just pisses me off. The whole Gamorra, all of that just pisses me off, and it's hard to watch. But I also really like the opening kind of fights with Tony and Doctor Strange and Wong and everybody. I love that they did Nomad. I mean, they didn't call it Nomad, but oh god, yeah, I am really into that. Like, the fact that they at least did it without calling it that. But like, yeah, Nomad, really love. You know, I love the little like team up of Nomad, Falcon, and Black Widow. That was just perfect, and that moment is just perfect. I'm not really invested in the Vision Scarlet Witch kind of romance line, but that moment where they all come to save them is pretty fantastic. Also, like the whole Banner not being able to find Hulk, I'm kind of on, but it was fine. Of course, Wakanda. Yes, we come back to Wakanda. We don't get a ton, I don't think, from T'Challa specifically, but I love the fight scenes with Okoye and Black Widow and Scarlet Witch. I think those felt really natural in a way that a certain scene that I will not spoil in Endgame does not feel natural. And yeah, like it feels like it has stakes, and I think Thanos is a really good villain. So I think like Thanos is a fleshed out villain, and I like the way they did that. All right, enough about Infinity War. So when we get to number 8, gonna do Captain Marvel here. I think this was hard because I really liked that movie on the one hand. On the other hand, I think there are things about the plot that weren't great. I love the Marvel, we'll just say the Marvel character, because I realize this is kind of recent too, so I'll avoid spoilers for it. But the character is developed in a way that it's sad that they filmed Endgame before this, because you don't have that continuity. But I'm really excited to see if they do the Monica Rambeau thing. Like a lot of people have said, like, that relationship had a lot of queer subtext, and although I would say for me, I actually didn't pick up on it as romantic. I actually kind of, like, to me it felt kind of like a queer platonic thing, which I really loved. Like, I loved seeing that. I loved the idea of like this chosen family, not necessarily a sexual or romantic relationship, though it could be, but I loved that they, like, that was what she was coming back to, was her chosen family, and the kid they were raising together. Like, that was just really nice to see. And there's a certain moment that I won't spoil, but there's a certain moment where, we'll just say, someone tries to like egg Carol on and get her to engage in a way that reminded me a lot of that one scene with Batroc and Steve, where in Winter Soldier, where Batroc like taunts Steve into taking off his helmet, throwing down his shield, and fighting, and it goes very differently in this movie, and I love the way it does go. Okay, so 7, I'm gonna say Endgame here. I do like Endgame more than Infinity War. Without spoiling it, I'll just say, like, yes, it's kind of fan servicey, and there's a lot of fan servicey moments, but given how many movies we've been through, I think that's appropriate here. And I love that it's a film about relationships. They dig in a little more about what the world looks like after the snap, and there is a certain plot point that you can probably guess if you've seen it that pisses me off, but other than that one thing, and some of the kind of timey-wimey, hand-wavy stuff, they do a pretty good job of making it a movie about people, and there's some really good Steve Tony moments, and I just cannot my heart. So that's all I'm going to say, try not to spoil. Number 6, the first Iron Man movie. I rank this really highly because I do think it's a good origin story. We get so many origin stories, but I think it's really well fleshed out. You can see the evolution of the character. Obviously, the end, the I Am Iron Man moment is classic, but just overall, I love the sequences when he gets back to his workshop and he's trying out Iron Man armor for the first time. Like, that's just a really, like, it's a good moment to watch, especially on rewatch. Then I'm gonna put, for 5, I'm gonna say Civil War. I really like there's certain things about it that are really hard to watch, and I don't like that final battle, but the big team up battle at the airport is great. The fact that we get introduced to T'Challa is awesome, and Okoye and some other people. Like, we get an introduction to Peter Parker in this that's pretty fun. There's a lot of fun elements, and then there's some really, like, it makes sense what this has been building to. Like, I'm 100% Team Cap, just so you know. And I like that they're continuing some of the threads from Winter Soldier and with Bucky that I really like. So I'm going to put that at 5. Number 4, I'm going to say Ragnarok, because Taika Waititi is amazing, and the humor in this is so good, and it's silly, and it's weird, and, like, it maybe doesn't, it's not necessarily, like, the most amazing story they've ever told, but I think the Thor arc really works for once. Like, Thor has become a real character, and he's funny, but it's, like, self-aware, and there's an actual depth of character there as well. And then Hela is just, I stand for Cate Blanchett really hard, and this is an amazing role for her. I also like Loki in this movie. It's good. It's really good. Alright, number 3, the first Avengers movie, mostly because it is just this great moment of team up and, like, these people coming together. There are a lot of good one-liners in it, there's a lot of humor in it, but it's also just, like, there's something that feels really good about this team finally coming together, and getting to see how they interact with one another. Alright, final 2. Number 2, The Winter Soldier. I am a really big fan of this movie. I already said I love, like, the Steve and Bucky stuff, but I think, like, the Steve and Natasha relationship and the way that friendship develops, I think, is really good and, like, kind of rare. To have this, like, a guy and a girl, like, exploring a friendship together that doesn't have a hint of romance is nice. And then you really do feel, I think you start to feel into her character and understand, like, the arc of that character and what it means to her that S.H.I.E.L.D. is compromised. And that whole thing, it's really compelling. The fights are awesome. The elevator scene is amazing. There's a lot of good fight stuff. I love the moment where he grabs the shield, where Winter Soldier grabs the shield. Like, all of the fighting with him, it's not so much character development for Bucky at this point, but, like, there's just a lot of good fight stuff, and then seeing it through Steve's eyes. And then, of course, I love Sam Wilson, and I love the way they introduce that character and what he brings to, like, the thing he brings to that kind of triad of Sam, Steve, and Natasha is really cool, and I love the way that, like, balances out, I think, really nicely. Alright, number 1, it's Black Panther. It's not a perfect movie, but, like, obviously, it's amazing to have this movie where there's, like, 2 white guys in the whole thing. I hate Agent Ross. Agent Ross drives me crazy, but, like, just seeing this much black excellence on screen, but also a really good story, and the way they tell this story of, like, the African American experience versus African experience, the kind of privilege and wealth that comes along with being Wakandan in this world, and coming to terms with this. Killmonger, hands down, the best. I don't even know that I would say villain. I want to say anti-hero, but, you know, best anti-hero. If you want to call him a villain, then he's the best villain in the MCU. Michael B. Jordan just, like, kills that performance, and that heartbreaking end moment, just, I just cannot. It's so good. So love that. Love what they've done with Shuri, which is very different from the comics, but, like, an awesome performance. Same with Nakia. I'm right now reading a comics thread that just, like, messes up Nakia, and so it's really nice to see her in this. You get more Okoye, one of my favorite characters. I don't know about the whole, like, Okoye Wakabi thing is not, like, she's supposed to be queer, you guys, come on. So I wish they had put that in. I love M'Baku as a character, and I want to see more of him. I think that like the cool thing about this movie is it's not about T'Challa. It's called Black Panther, but it is not really about the Black Panther. T'Challa is kind of awkward and struggling and like confused, and he has a realistic arc of somebody coming into power, you know, after his father died, and like coming to terms with his relationship to his ancestors. That is interesting, but he's also not really the central focal point, and so I love the way they do that in not a very obvious way. Like some bit through the movie, you start to realize that you're seeing a movie about Wakanda, and all these characters, not really a movie about the Black Panther specifically. So that is my number one, and that is my order. Sorry about the stumbling in the beginning, but that is my 20 of the movies ranked. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How would you change the order? Where do you think I went really, really wrong? And where do you agree? Leave something in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I will be doing some more Marvel content, specifically walking through my reading of some older Marvel comics from a very queer perspective. So if you think you would enjoy that, definitely subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you around soon.